thank you, Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Tester. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, and thank you, Chair Powell, for being here with us this morning. Certainly an important time for us to engage in the conversation about the future of employment in our nation, and one of the core responsibilities of the Fed, of course, has to do with unemployment. There seems to be so few issues right now, Chairman Powell, that actually unites the left and the right. I'm always stunned in Washington when we find something that unites both sides, and frankly, the minimum wage issue is an issue that has united both Republicans and Democrats on opposing having the $15 minimum wage as a part of the COVID-19 relief package. It's good to see my friends on the left coming to the conclusion that in the middle of a pandemic that, according to the Congressional Budget Office, has already shuttered, the $15 minimum wage would shutter another 1.4 million jobs. Their earlier estimate went as high as 3.7 million jobs in the middle of a pandemic that has eliminated 10.7 million jobs. This seems to be common sense from my perspective, from the perspective of Democrats and the Congressional Budget Office. My question for you, sir, is has the Fed economists conducted research on the potential impacts of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
I don't know that we've looked at that question particularly. We have great labor economists who've done a lot of work on the broad area.
Yes, sir. Are there conclusions similar to the conclusions of the Congressional Budget Office as it relates to the negative impact of raising the minimum wage during the pandemic?
Let me say, as I must, that this is a classic issue that the Fed never takes a position on, and I'm not going to take a position on it here today. It's fiscal policy. Most of the research still says that there's some trade-off between job loss and those whose wages go up. But actually, the sort of unanimity of that finding of 30 or 40 years ago is no longer in place. There's a much more nuanced understanding of it. But in any case, it's just an issue where we don't play a role or express a view. But I can share with you the research that we've done. Be happy to do that.
That would be
that our staff has done.
That would be very important, especially as you think of the Fed's responsibility as it relates to providing a sustainable economy that includes keeping unemployment as low as possible. The fact that the Fed isn't taking a position on an increase of the minimum wage that is obviously, according to the Congressional Budget Office, going to eliminate the minimum of 1.4 million jobs, I think is an important engagement from the Fed on that issue. I'll ask you a different question as it relates to the COVID relief package of $1.9 trillion. It seems to me that over the last fiscal year, we spent right around $6.5 trillion addressing the pandemic. My question for you is, as we see another $1.9 trillion on top of the 6.5 that we've already spent, what is the impact on the issue of rising inflation in excess of the Fed's longer run objective of 2%?
So, of course, as I said at the beginning, I'm not going to comment today on the proposal that you mentioned, the fiscal package that you mentioned at all. Not our role. I will say on inflation, there perhaps once was a strong connection between budget deficits and inflation. There really hasn't been lately. That doesn't mean it won't return. But again, my expectation will be that inflation will probably be a bit volatile over the next year or so, due in a significant amount to particular things to do with the pandemic. For example, we'll see a slight increase in inflation in a few months because of the base effects that I mentioned. We'll also see, perhaps, we don't know this, but we may see upward pressure on prices as the economy fully reopens, a good problem to have. I don't think that those effects should either be large or persistent. And the real reason for that is that we've had decades of well-anchored inflation expectations, meaning that we've had a very volatile economy for the last 15 years, and inflation has just kind of done what it was going to do. It didn't go up.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your your answer, the fact that you're unwilling and unable to answer the questions as it relates to the minimum wage, and certainly you don't want to get into the politics of the $1.9 trillion package. I don't blame you. If I were you, I wouldn't want to get into the politics of it at all, frankly. And I certainly understand your reticence to do so. I'll use my few seconds here to simply say that Congressional Budget Office, some Democrats, all Republicans, all agree that raising the minimum wage is a way to destroy jobs in an economy that is looking forward to a fragile recovery. Thank you, Chair Brown.